Good morning.
Hey, how are you?
Well, Beck. Very good. Thanks for checking in with us here. It's Marty and Danielle at 91X San Diego.
Hey, guys.
Where are you at this morning?
I am in Los Angeles.
Now, I've heard you claim East LA before. Is it an East LA spot?
I'm mostly in Hollywood these days, but so it's nearby.
Gotcha.
Yeah, not too far.
We know him from the song Loser, Where It's At, multi-platinum artist, Grammy winner, including Album of the Year, the coveted Album of the Year for Morning Phase, influencer of so many artists, 25 years on, multimedia visionary. Beck is on the phone with us this morning.
Wow, that was some multi-hyphenated grandiosity.
So we're so glad to have you on. We're super excited about your 14th full album. It's coming, called Hyperspace, November 22nd. You've given us a couple of gems from it so far. Saw Lightning. We've got Uneventful Days, which the video,
So good.
Star-studded visual. Were you part of the process of choosing the wonderful actresses in that? Evan Rachel Wood's in it?
Dev, the singer and main force of Blood Orange. So he did the video. I was actually in Europe doing promotion, so I love what he does. He directs his own videos, so I can let him just do what he does.
Aside from Dev, do you pay attention to some of the video makers or movie makers? Since you're from Hollywood, are you attuned to the people out there putting out music visuals?
It's funny. It's the idea of videos. It's a little more fragmented now. You know, it's kind of online, but I still do see things that are pretty inspiring. Was it Rosalia? I think she has some great videos. We shared a video director. Pretty interesting, the whole idea of videos these days.
Obviously, without the MTV component, they kind of have their own home or find their way to people in different ways than what we're used to, I guess, being part of Generation X.
Yeah, exactly. It was really such a particular thing, When it was coming off of MTV, there was a while, it was a really important video, sort of a transmission of what was sort of happening in the culture, sort of encoded micro pieces of cinema. You had people like Spike Jonze and Michel Gondry,
Yeah,
and David Fincher, all kinds of genius filmmakers.
I will tell Danielle, she's heard of MTV. She's younger than me. That there was an episode of MTV's 120 Minutes in which Beck and a guy named Thurston Moore in this band called Sonic Youth that a lot of us olds like, and they had an amazing moment in pop culture where, I don't know. Can you tell us what happened in that scene, Beck? I know it's so far back and you've explained it so many times. If you could tell her what happened. He
was hosting. And I think the Loser video had just come out, and I'd met him a handful of times. He's such an amazing musician, musical force. I was just playing kind of small gigs around Los Angeles, and I remember playing at a barbecue, actually. And he showed up at this barbecue in the middle of an afternoon on Sunday to see me play. He's like, to me, he was kind of a god, and to find him just nondescript barbecue watching me play, was really shows that he really digs deep in music and he's engaged. So we were friends at that point, and he was hosting and invited me down, and I said I'm going to stop by the hardware store and get a few things for us to, and we just improv'd basically. There was no plan or script. There were some things that actually got cut out. Like there was one point where I can't remember who, somebody calls us on this phone. And then I answer it, and then we both smash bat with baseball bats. And I think we just kind of, it was a bit tongue-in-cheek, but also it was a bit of, just wanted to bring some kind of freedom and weirdness to the TV landscape of the day. Well, you did. I mean, I think that's why we all were like, one, we were getting in tune with you right at that time. Thurston, a legend in indie rock, he was co-signing on you, and we were like, okay, Thurston's cool with Beck. We're cool with Beck. Like you said, the freedom to be yourself all the way out, I think that's part of the ethos that's always been in sort of quote-unquote the alternative music genres, like the fact that you kind of get to do that. Hip-hop seemingly is the place where that's happening in 2019. Am I wrong? Sure, yeah. I mean, music, culture, there can be sort of a formality that builds. And these people kind of come in and disrupt and sort of open up that space again. And it's not really genre specific, it's just more about finding a place to just remove all the propriety, formality, and and just kind of let loose. And music needs that freedom, it needs that sort of, it'll find it in whatever genre it wants, whatever seems right at the moment. In that moment, it was alternative music, I think.
You talk about disruptions. I love the song No Distraction from the Colors record. It was just my personal favorite. And I thought about...
Oh, wow. Nobody said that to me. That makes me really happy.
Oh, yeah. When I did the headphones and listened to the whole thing on, which I try to do every time one of your, full-length hits, that one I'm just like, man, that's right now. I mean, we're all still way distracted. So the song, No Distraction, you wrote that obviously from personal experience, and obviously the fact that you were annoyed by technology or annoyed that everybody was looking down, I'm guessing.
A lot of my songwriting is sort of swath in other language, and kind of I try not to write things that are too on the head, hitting the nail on the head, which can be frustrating for listeners. And like, what is this about? I'll tend to sort of encode it in a kind of personal imagery and my own sort of experience. But a lot of the songs on the Colors album, I was kind of trying to reduce and simplify. I wanted something so straight ahead statement, no distraction. Can I be with you? I just want to be with you without distraction. I was sort of trying to think what would be a simple mantra of the moment for me, and that would be that, wanting to connect with somebody that you love. I mean, I think there's 100 ways to say that, but it's something I struggle with friends and my own children. Even the audience, there's a tour this summer. There were times where somebody in the front row would be just sitting on their phone while we're playing our show and pouring out our innermost. And I don't expect nobody owes me their attention, but that doesn't take away the longing to want to connect with somebody. And I think ultimately that's what social media does. That's what these newfangled smartphones that are omnipresent and everywhere, they kind of, this sort of empty calorie of wanting to connect with a human, I find myself a lot of times texting with somebody and I just stop and call them.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And and there's an awkwardness at first, you know what I mean? I don't know if you know that. Like, What are you doing? You're calling me? And the conversation just goes somewhere that doesn't really happen in texting. And in person, it's even better.
I've seen that some artists have banned cell phones during performances. Is that something that you've considered?
No, I don't agree with that. Everyone needs to make their own decisions. I can't dictate to them. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes people are filming, they want a keepsake. And a lot of times, the way it works when we perform, the professional photographers are only allowed to come out for the first 2 songs. So some of the most interesting things to capture in the show are happening much later in the show. And look, I've been playing decades of shows. There's so many shows that were not documented that there's no pictures of. So I'm happy to have records of these shows that they have. I've poured probably 70 to 80% of my life's energy into performing live. So I'm happy to have some of that preserved, even just in fragmentary phone photos or short 10-second videos. I'm glad that they're out there. So, but, it is a little disheartening when you see somebody just texting on their phone in the front row, like leaning on the barricade 8 feet in front of you. Luckily, that's not the case every time.
And you paid for a front row seat and you're on your phone. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm sure that crosses your mind.
Yeah. What crosses my mind is that I want to engage with that person. I want to try to connect with them. And so we do it with humor. I remember I was waving to her, trying to get her attention, and her friends are nudging her.
That's amazing.
I think we're unself-conscious with these phones. Like, she probably didn't even realize that I could see her, but she was right there.
Beck, I've talked to you before about our love for Prince, and you told me that Deborah, you were channeling Prince. And then you also added, I'm always channeling Prince. Is that right? Do you remember that?
I don't, but I'm sure there's an element in there. There's certain artists that are in the DNA. I don't think the Stones can write a song without Chuck Berry being in there. And for Prince, it's probably, James Brown, Sly Stone, Jimi Hendrix. We're all sort of a continuum. The best of us is a continuum.
It's one of those moments in your life where you remember where you were when you heard Prince passed away and how you felt that day. I mean, I pulled over and cried. I mean, if I can be full disclosure.
Yeah, I was in the car as well. I was driving to work. It was in the morning. I was on the freeway, and someone called me, and just shock and disbelief. And, it's just that overwhelming feeling of this isn't right. There's something not right in the world, in the universe. I believe he was supposed to be around at least another 20 years. And, yeah, it's just a shame.
Had you had a chance to cross his path?
I did a few times. Yeah, I was actually invited to a party at his house once. And I think at this house, he had a stage set up in his living room. So there were jam sessions, and I was anticipating, maybe getting to play with him. And then as I was driving over, my friend called and said that he canceled the party and kicked everybody out.
Oh.
So I knew that he was mercurial, he was ever changing, And so, I never actively pursued being with him, but I had a lot of friends who toured with him and worked with him. I know people from his band. My drummer actually did an unreleased album with him.
Oh.
Fairly recently, my drummer, Chris.
Oh,
wow.
So we have a lot of mutual friends, and he called me up on stage once, though.
Oh.
I was in the audience. I didn't actually know I was going to a Prince show. He was playing a showcase. I was just in jeans and some running shoes, and so he pulled me up, and I jumped up on stage, and he asked me to show him my moves, and I know it's a cop-out, but I was wearing the wrong shoes. I couldn't do any. I couldn't do any of my thing with these particular shoes.
No.
I unfortunately wore that day, and it was a missed opportunity because, and I think I was also, maybe the pressure was a little bit under the microscope. In another time, in another place, that would have been a magic moment for me, I think.
Magic moment, because you got moves, dude. We've seen him.
Oh, yes.
We know.
Yeah, and I think at the time, I half-heartedly tried a couple things. I could tell nothing was working with these shoes.
Oh, yep.
So I just ungracefully moonwalked off the stage. And,
similar situation with me. Lesson learned early in life: do not go to the punk rock show with flip-flops. Rules of San Diego shows: do not go to the punk rock show with flip-flops.
God, that should be on the tombstone, I think.
I'll have you give the eulogy, and you'll remind
everybody.
everybody.
Punk rock show flip-flops. I want to see that. Yes.
Wow, what cool Prince stories you just gave us. I'm sure other people have stories of you being their Prince. You've collabed with some pretty cool people, and especially on this new record. Pharrell, Chris Martin, Greg Kurstin again.
In a way, it's sort of like your family. In more ways than one, we're sort of in this together, and that's one of the things that drew me to music. As a kid, I would see these musicians, and you just get this strange, unexplainable feeling that these are a family. And I feel that way about, musicians from the past as well. We all have our own cosmology of people that are figures that were inspirations to us, that we sort of feel this kinship for some unexplainable reason. So, yeah, I've been really lucky. Although I do have to say the amount of people I did call who didn't call me back are legion compared to the people who are actually on the record. So I was hoping for the record to be much more collaborative, but maybe in the future, I would love to do a record that has, a lot of my friends.
You're the Quincy Jones and you do your own We Are the World, so would that be right?
Yeah, I think it's important for us to all sort of rub shoulders, and the sort of friction that happens of contact between creative people. It really, I noticed on tour, I did a long tour this summer with Cage the Elephant and Spoon and Starcrawler. You all start to rub off on each other, and I think that you see that all the way to the Beatles and the Stones and Hendrix. Hendrix would come out a song, and then you'd hear some kind of version of that in the Beatles. In the best scenario, we all make each other better. We all inspire each other to kind of say, oh, you can do that. Oh, that's okay. We're all sort of reminding each other of, in the best way, whatever we're doing creatively, kind of what we knew as children, which is this sort of spontaneous, unself-consciousness and openness. So that's kind of what I look for in working with people, is kind of to sort of be, witness to everybody has something very specific and unique that they bring. And that's something that I can't necessarily do. Something that Chris Martin does or St. Vincent does is something that I can't do. So to sort of share that and have that dialogue is really kind of what drew me to music in the first place. And you have to kind of remind yourself, because it does become a job in some ways. It becomes formalized and structured. The younger part of yourself, the sort of child part of it, you just want to call your friends over. Hey, come over. You have to access that, and that's where the music lives. That's where the special things happen.
Beck, with all of the times that you have done stuff with 91X or even just been in San Diego, what is your favorite San Diego memory?
Wow. there's quite a few. You know, a lot of festivals, a lot of shows. Oh, God. Sort of all these random moments are like coming to mind. I remember really early on playing some club that was maybe like a reggae, and I don't remember the name of it, but I remember Loser had just come out, and it was the end of the U.S. tour, and we decided to play a 20-minute version of Loser.
Oh.
Wow.
And it's the kind of thing you do when you've been on tour too long. You sort of take a sort of half-baked idea way too far. So we started out with Loser, and I think we were going to play it so many times, you know, because it was the song that everybody was coming to. So we were like, we're just going to play it for 20 minutes. And I think at one point it became a jazz version, and it went into a reggae thing. And it's the kind of indulgent thing we do in a rehearsal just to amuse ourselves, myself and the band. And I remember it devolving into sort of a Sonic Youth-style noise jam. And at one point, looking up, there were 3 people left in the audience.
Oh, gosh, but can you imagine seeing that?
Yeah. Those 3 people have a story
like,
now.
The whole place was empty. And I remember driving home that night, and nobody was talking, and it was sort of this funeral kind of atmosphere. And I went home and started making Odolate. So that was sort of the mind state of leading into that next record was like, okay, I got to back to the drawing board. I've alienated San Diego.
Beck, I don't know if you think about it, but you've been on making music 26 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame cross your mind at all?
I've been there a few times. I got to perform in the tribute for Lou Reed, which I don't think was a very good performance on my part, but those things are out of your control. I've become a voter in recent years, so I'm always trying to get Kraftwerk or Devo or Sly and the Family Stone, those kind of people in there, you know, that I feel like might not be on the radar of the mainstream, but we're just so influential for me and for a lot of the artists that I love.
I was in a breakdance contest. 1983 Tour de France was my jam at the Chuck E. Cheese in Modesto. Got 3rd place, only 3 people in it. Only 3 people competed, but that's my introduction to Kraftwerk.
Are you pitching me a video treatment right now?
Oh, my gosh, that'd be so amazing.
Yes.
Okay.
Beck, thank you for sharing all this time with us and such great stories. Mm-hmm. And the San Diego one is going to go into the books after this. People are going to hear this and never forget.
The Reggae Club, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It was great talking to you.